Hi, I'm Alex. I'm the host of the Light Leaders podcast. I've done over 200 episodes and I have over 200,000 views on YouTube alone. I've been doing those podcast interviews for over 5 years now. And I've also started coaching light workers and leaders of the new earth to start their own podcasts. Just in the last 2 weeks, I've been coaching 10 of them. And I want to share a little bit what I've learned from my own journey and coaching those people. I also want to share that as a light worker myself, I came to Earth to create that new Earth, actually. And if you also relate with that, if you remember you came here with a purpose to create a beautiful new Earth that's more in harmony with our nature, with each other, and with consciousness, with animals, well, then potentially you came here to share your voice through a podcast and a YouTube channel, because we incarnated in a world where we have those amazing technologies that allow us to broadcast our voices to the world. And I believe in the world of today, YouTube has kind of become the global university. That's the place where people learn a lot of things. And so if you're going to broadcast things to hundreds, thousands, millions of people, you can have tremendous impact on the shift in consciousness of our planet. So now let's get into those 4 mistakes that I've seen people make or that I've made myself. The first one is lacking intentionality. So really, there's so many reasons to start a podcast. You could start a podcast because you want to connect with amazing people. That can be a networking tool. You can start a podcast because you want to learn from those people. So just want to learn or get coached for free through your podcasting sessions. And you can do one because you want to increase the awareness around your brand and your business. You can do one to be seen as an authority in what you're doing. You can do one to tap into other people's audiences. So there's so many reasons, but really, when you know the reason why you're doing it, then you can own the way you do it and align it. You align the way you do it with the reason you're doing it. Let me give you an example. And that comes from the people I coach, for example. If someone wants to start a podcast because they want to learn from amazing people and they don't really care too much at the beginning of creating a brand or the marketing side, then really you could have 4 or 5 interviews a week. If you're dedicated, you could say, I do one interview a day with just someone, and I know they'll have a lot of things to teach me anyway. And you just record on Zoom, post it on YouTube, and do no marketing whatsoever. So let's say if it's a 30-minute interview, just recording the interview, inviting the guests before, and then posting on YouTube, and that's it, could take you like an hour a day, and that's something realistic. Now, if you, let's say, have a coaching business and your goal is to get clients, you probably prefer to gain visibility and make it really intentional relating to your business. So in those cases, maybe you only post one episode every 2 weeks, but that episode might be with someone with a big following on Instagram that you know is going to do a collab with you, for example, and going to be very relevant to that niche that you want to serve. So in the first case, you just want to have a lot of great conversation. In the second case, you want to have those conversations with the right people that are going to attract leads. And another example, if you just want to have a big YouTube channel with a lot of views, then you may target topics and look at things that are more interesting for getting a lot of views, but that may necessarily not translate into clients for a coaching business, for example. So for some people, it's much better to have 100 views per video, but those 100 people are potential clients that are going to hire you, rather than having maybe 1,000 views, but from people who just want to get entertained and watch a video. Now going to the second mistake is often people craft their podcast in a way that's unsustainable. Because whatever you build, is good to have some consistency. Consistency in the topics you choose, consistency in the name and the branding, consistency in the format, and consistency in the frequency. And so some people, let's say if your main business is your coaching business, you already have a lot of work and you want to do an interview every day. It's probably not realistic. Maybe you're going to do that while you're excited for the first 2 weeks, but then you're going to give up, right? So it's better to start with maybe 2 videos, maybe just 1 a week, and be consistent with that. And it's the same with the branding aspect of things. So there are advantages to go more niche, but if that niche is going to become boring after 3 months, you'd rather unniche. And so you can keep the same name for the podcast. And that's what I've done with, for example, the Light Leaders. And that's what I haven't done into, let's say, the raw vegan niche for how I name my podcast. You can do series on that, but then it's good to keep the podcast wide enough so you can still be really interested about what you're doing 5 years from now, but narrow enough so you can speak to a specific audience too. And when we talk about sustainability, we also want to think of investment, right? A lot of people get very enthusiastic about podcasting and getting their voice to the world, but depending on your financial situation, it might be smart to think, is that sustainable in terms of investment? I've done that mistake before when 3 or 4 years ago, I was renting a studio and it was costing me about $300, $400 per episode between the studio and the team I hired and the people doing the clips. And ultimately, it wasn't very sustainable for me because I didn't get a good ROI on my podcast because I wasn't intentional enough, tying up to the first point. And I see a lot of successful entrepreneurs do the same. They invest a lot, but then it's not sustainable financially. So I think it's really good to think of that. Okay, what's my ROI on that podcast ahead of time so we can stay consistent? And that's going to also tie into the next topic, which is forgetting about the viewer. A lot of people, when they start a podcast, they think, what am I going to want to talk about? What am I passionate about? And that's amazing. That's a really good start. But fundamentally, it's also very important to think about why are people going to watch, right? And coming back to the intentionality, if your intention is self-expression and to have a kind of journal that you also happen to make public on a YouTube channel, then it's fine, own it. But if your intention is to have a lot of views, there are things you need to think about in regards to why is the viewer going to watch this? Or if you want to get coaching clients from your videos, well, then you need to think about how is my target audience going to be interested in that? And so that ties into the topic, that ties into the thumbnail, the title. So now when I create videos, I'm very intentional about putting myself in the shoes of the viewer and understanding why are they going to click on that video and why are they going to stick around the video and enjoy it, and why is that going to motivate them to potentially work with me too. So it's all the things that I think about and I really put myself in the viewer's shoe. You can do that reverse engineering it for yourself. Like, what makes you click on a video when you're on YouTube? And that will give you clues. Now, number 4, that's the most important. Don't be a perfectionist. Because when I share all these points, it's like things to take into account and they can save you a lot of time. I wish I knew them 5 years ago. I'm trying to share them with people. But what I've done right 5 years ago is I started. And that comes to don't be a perfectionist. Like, of course, if you're really clear on your brand positioning, your message, your goals, the platforms you're going to use, how you're going to market it, that's amazing. And that's why I work with people to help them save time on this. You're going to save so much time. All of this is amazing. But if you never get started, that's the worst. It's never going to work. So you might as well at some point do the prep work, but also really make sure on getting started. It's like a mix. There are statistics, I think it's like 90% of podcasts or something, they don't reach episode 10. So it's good to do all the things I said before so you can stay consistent. And at least these people, they started. But I think there's an even bigger number of podcasters, wannabe podcasters that never started. I know so many people, they even bought $2,000 of equipment and the mics and the camera, which by the way is not the most important at all. And they never ended up starting. They felt a bit overwhelmed because of that perfectionism. So again, if you're going to start, might as well make it good, but most importantly is actually start and do it. So I hope that was helpful. And as mentioned, I'm now doing coaching for people who want to start or up level their podcast or their YouTube channel. I actually specialize in podcasts that include podcast interviews that are recorded on video and that are optimized for YouTube. I believe it's the best strategy. I will put a link in the description if you want to get in touch to get a coaching session. I do free ones at the moment. And thank you so much for sticking around. Much love to you. And again, if you have a podcast, if you have a beautiful YouTube channel, a creative piece that you feel can reach many, many people, thousands, millions, I believe it is worth to do what we came here to do as light leaders and take action and give our gifts to this beautiful world. Much love.